Now, we've all heard the recent shocking news from Israel last Thursday. An Iranian ballistic missile struck a major hospital, the largest in the south of the country, serving nearly 1 million people. The impact was devastating. Entire wards were reduced to rubble and engulfed in flames. Even medical staff, far from the blast, were thrown to the ground by the force of the explosion. However, they say that 71 people were wounded, most of them suffering light injuries, and there was no death. How could that be? Now listen to this. The Israeli Health Ministry explained that the patients who were in the damaged wards were taken to underground facilities just hours before the strike. And this is why no one died. And I want to thank God for this, because He is there. He's protecting His people. For Israel is a nation by miracle, as it always been and is today. This, is in front of us. What's even more striking is that this attack took place on a date of profound biblical significance. The 23rd of the month of Sivan, according to the Hebrew calendar, the very date marked in Esther chapter 8, verse 9, when a pivotal decree of deliverance was issued for the Jewish people. Then arose a man named Haman, who plotted to annihilate all the Jews across the Persian Empire. But through a remarkable and divine turn of events, the Bible records that on the 23rd of Sivan, King Ahasuerus granted the Jewish people the authority to rise up and defend themselves, to overturn Haman's decree of death. And on that very day, those who sought to harm the Jewish people were met with unexpected resistance and divine protection. And here lies the striking irony, that while this last Thursday miracle was on the same date as this decree was given 2,500 years ago, the threat back then came from the same region that fuels today's hostility. A sober reminder that while enemies may rise in different generations, one truth remains unchanged. God still guards His people. That's what the Bible teaches us. And there's a further parallel. This victory in Esther on the 23rd of Sivan paved the way for the rebuilding of the Second Temple and the first coming of Yeshua. Today, Israel's power and might over Iran may very well be following the same path toward the construction of the third temple that many Bible prophecies predicted will happen before the second coming of Yeshua. Furthermore, we read that the news that the fall of Iran brought great relief to the Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia. All this may facilitate the renewing of the Abraham Accords, which was interrupted by October 7th uprising by Hamas. Now that Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran are greatly reduced in power, a path to peace may begin to open up, as predicted by the prophets of the Bible. And this, of course, is before the tribulation. However, at this time, while Iran's military capabilities suffered a big blow, the war has not ended yet. It may take a time, but one thing is certain: the Lord is powerfully at work in this tiny nation of fewer than 10 million people standing against a giant like Iran with 90 million people. This staggering imbalance alone reveals what can only be described as the miracle of a nation. In today's Judaism, this date of the 23rd of Sivan is remembered in some traditional circle as a turning point for Israel. A day when divine providence began to reverse the decree of destruction. And this year, God reminded them that He's still with them, that He is still with them. And to the enemies of Israel, the same book of Esther has powerfully warned, which was directly addressed, by the way, to the person who decided to annihilate them. There was a verse addressed to him, that is him, Haman. When he began to see that his hatred was futile and his plan to annihilate the Jews were fruitless, it was his own wife and his own friends who said to him, actually, in Esther chapter 6:13, if Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish origin, you will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him. That's a prophecy, by the way. It was then that Haman fell, as his wife and friends said he would. Today in modern Persia, in Farsi, that is, the word Haman means the very name, right? The very same, that is, the very same. It is used to refer back to something previously mentioned or to emphasize the identity of sameness. How fitting then that the name of Haman, an ancient symbol of anti-Semitism, now echoes in a word that reminds us of such hatred is always the same, always leads to downfall. Esther 6:13 can be seen as a personal call that is from God of the Bible to reconsider one's hatred and turn to him in love. And God will give you that love, even the salvation in Yeshua. Amen.